Activision finally admitted it. I feel like I need to pinch myself to make sure that this is real. After all that boasting about how Battlefield 6 wasn't a threat to them, how Call of Duty was too big to fail, Black Ops 7 has performed so poorly that they are now rethinking their entire business strategy, moving away from releasing any back-to-back Black Ops or Modern Warfare games. And now, while they're not saying the quiet part out loud, at least not yet, there is no world where Activision does any of this if their game was a success or if they weren't in trouble. And they are definitely in trouble. The beast bleeds, my friends. After the pitiful launch of Black Ops 7, their player counts have only continued to crater, and you now have analysts talking about how Activision is the most exposed that they have ever been, with fewer players choosing to play Call of Duty every single year, and this year being the worst that they have ever seen. And the solution that Activision has come up with doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it also goes to prove how little they understand their own customers, as well as just the state of the games industry right now. Back-to-back series releases isn't their problem. Back-to-back game releases, expecting $70 games every single year. Constantly devaluing your customers' purchases, cannibalizing your own games, releasing an increasingly mediocre product against ever-improving competition year after year. That's the problem. And there's no easy solution for that. So today we're going to talk about just how bad things are for Call of Duty and for Activision, how a decade of bad decisions finally caught up with these guys, why their new plan doesn't really make a whole lot of sense and isn't going to fix anything, and how the success that these guys are chasing doesn't exist anymore. But before that, I heard that you were having trouble finding gifts for this holiday season, and it just so happens I got your back. You ever seen a pen do this? Today's video is sponsored by Novium, the creators of the Hover Pen Interstellar, a pen that literally floats in midair. No tricks, no electricity, just precision-engineered magnets keeping it suspended like it's something out of a sci-fi movie. It's made from aerospace-grade aluminum, it feels great to write with, and it looks insane on my desk. The Interstellar even won the Time Award for innovation, and there's a premium version with an actual meteorite embedded in the tip, meaning that you can hold something that is older than the Earth itself. It comes in colors like space black, Neptune blue, and Mars magma, and the packaging alone makes it the perfect gift for yourself or anyone else that appreciates something a little different. If you prefer something a little bit more customizable, check out the Hover Pen Future, which lets you switch between a fountain pen or a rollerball tip, still keeping that same futuristic design. Right now, you can get 15% off of all hover pens for the next 48 hours and 10% after that with free shipping worldwide. Use my code LEGENDARY or click the link in the description or pinned comment. You can also use the QR code on screen to go straight to the website with the discount automatically applied. Thank you to Novium for sponsoring today's video. Where do we even begin? You know, part of me just wants everybody to take a victory lap just for the sheer catharsis of watching this giant finally stumble, especially after months of people insisting that everything was just fine. You'd see people swearing online that Black Ops 7 is secretly one of the biggest game releases this year, and nearly every media outlet has been bending over backwards trying to avoid saying the obvious, probably trying to protect these guys from layoffs. But yeah, I'm sure a 60% drop between the launch of Black Ops 6 and Black Ops 7 paired with a matching 61% collapse in physical sales means absolutely nothing. Totally normal, especially when Battlefield 6 suffered none of those problems, broke its own records, and had the strongest first-month sale of any game in the US in the last 3 years. Oh, and now we have a prominent and relatively reliable Call of Duty leaker reporting that Microsoft believes that Black Ops 7 is a good game, but its financial performance is still below expectations, even with reduced expectations set after Black Ops 6 fell off a cliff, with Microsoft now demanding smoother revenue, lower spending, and even considering studio mergers and a complete overhaul of their monetization. Can't think of anything better for a franchise than becoming the financial keystone for one of the biggest publishers on the planet. I don't understand why anyone feels the need to pretend that Black Ops 7 is a success or rush to defend it. Any pressure on these companies is only going to lead to a better product for everyone. Protecting, deflecting, gaslighting, all it's going to do is encourage these companies to continue under-delivering. Being critical is how we get better games, and the weakening sales of Black Ops 7 already proves it. Activision themselves have already stepped forward and admitted that the game isn't meeting their expectations, and now they're scrambling to change course. PC Gamer wrote an article titled, "After Black Ops 7's weaker launch, Call of Duty will no longer do back-to-back releases in the same series," where Morgan Park writes, "The soft response to Call of Duty's latest release, Black Ops 7, continues to affect change in the long-running series. As announced on their official Call of Duty blog today, Activision will no longer make back-to-back Call of Duty games in the same series. The news comes off the back of a weaker than usual year for the franchise, which saw the release of Black Ops 7 just a year after Black Ops 6, and before that, it made a reboot of Modern Warfare 3 in 2023, just a year after the reboot of Modern Warfare 2 in 2022. That repetition has created a strong sense of fatigue among many parts of the player base, which Activision cited indirectly as a factor in today's decision. We will no longer do back-to-back releases of Modern Warfare or Black Ops games. The reasons are many, but the main one is to ensure that we provide an absolutely unique experience each and every year. We will drive innovation that is meaningful, not incremental. While we aren't sharing those plans today, we look forward to doing so when the time is right, the blog reads. To be clear, the future of Call of Duty is very strong, and we believe that our best days are ahead of us given the depth and talent of our development teams. We have been building the next era of Call of Duty, and it will deliver precisely on what you want, along with surprises that will push the franchise and the genre forward. We look forward to welcoming you in, listening to you, and moving forward together. This reads like it was written for Microsoft shareholders, not the people actually playing their games, and I don't know how they can claim that they think the future of Call of Duty is very strong as if they've suddenly developed precognitive powers when they couldn't even see the cliff that they drove off with Black Ops 7. We will drive innovation that is meaningful and not incremental. What does that even mean? And yes, while they are easing off of back-to-back releases within the same series, which in theory should give these studios a little bit more breathing room, I don't see how this solves anything beyond just superficial fatigue of seeing the same title every single year. And to be honest, I don't even believe them. These guys will always pull the trigger on whatever they think is going to sell the most or whatever they think is the closest to being finished. Long-term consequences be damned. Back in 2022, they floated the idea of delaying Call of Duty for the first time since 2004 after Modern Warfare 2, and what happened? They immediately shoved Modern Warfare 3 out the door, a clearly unfinished game that underdelivered and became one of the lowest user-scored Call of Duties in franchise history. This is their MO. The problem isn't back-to-back Black Ops games or back-to-back Modern Warfare games. Their problem is back-to-back games. They're like EA pumping out annual sports titles. This model gives their teams no time to breathe, let alone any time to improve anything. We've talked about this every single time Activision has come up. It's why their games have so many issues, but it's honestly bigger than that. It's why every single game feels identical. A new coat of paint, a few new maps, a pile of remastered or recycled content. Players get less every year and are expected to pay the exact same price or more. If we compare that to something like Battlefield 6, the difference is night and day. Yeah, EA absolutely bombed with Battlefield 2042. That game was a disaster, but they took off 4 years, pulled all their resources together, brought the community in to be able to help in the development process, and basically did whatever it took to rebuild that franchise, and it worked. We watched a full revival of a series that hasn't been culturally relevant in years. That time gave those developers time to breathe, time to process feedback, time to experiment, to fix what was broken, and create a game that people actually wanted to play. Simply rotating the name on the box while still forcing your studios to hit that yearly deadline does not give you any of that. It does not give your developers any space to be able to evolve their ideas, and it definitely doesn't give you any meaningful or incremental innovation, no matter how many times Activision wants to say those words. All it does is guarantee stagnation or worse, regression, something that we can clearly see with Black Ops 7. And you know what? I'm going to push that comparison even further. These studios need to be allowed to make other games. Look at all the teams that worked on Battlefield 6 over the past decade. They have worked on a variety of projects. DICE worked on Star Wars Battlefront 2 back in 2017. Criterion made Need for Speed Unbound. Motive worked on Star Wars Squadrons and the Dead Space remake. Ripple Effect assisted on Jedi Fallen Order. These studios weren't chained to a single IP. They developed new skills. They got to stretch their creative muscles, and they got to come up with some new ideas. Meanwhile, Call of Duty studios have been shackled to the same treadmill for over a decade. Treyarch is a studio that used to work on Tony Hawk, on sports titles, on Spider-Man games, and they have been welded to Call of Duty for so long that the people there probably forgot how to do anything else. That's the difference between these studios. That's what Activision, I think, refuses to acknowledge here. I think that freedom matters a lot more than people think. When a studio gets to work on different genres and different mechanics and different games, they get to build some creative range. They're forced to adapt, rethink their assumptions, and come up with some new skills, the things that actually make game developers better at their jobs. You can see that in the studios that EA wander around a little bit. Call of Duty, they don't get any of that. They've been stuck in the same creative frame every single year, the same movement systems, the same gun feel, the same multiplayer demands and monetization hooks, and the same deadlines. There's no room for curiosity or risk, no room for them to rediscover why they got into game development in the first place. It's assembly line pressure that's dressed up as game design, and eventually that kills everything that made a series interesting. So when you're forcing these people to build the same thing over and over again, they're not refining anything. All they're doing is shrinking it. They're simplifying it. They're sanding down everything that might slow down the schedule. That's why Call of Duty hasn't evolved in any real way. It can't. The people that are making it aren't allowed to grow. Activision, it might sound crazy, but if you're listening to me right now, imagine how much you would blow people's minds if you decided to make something that wasn't Call of Duty or wasn't even a first-person shooter. Decided to just throw the chains off, let Treyarch or Infinity Ward create some new IP from the ground up. You wouldn't even have to market the game. The people that are already your annual Call of Duty slop enjoyers would line up because they worship you, and those of us that you have lost would be so shocked that it would be impossible for us not to be interested in what you're doing. And even if a game like that came out and failed, it wouldn't even matter. Mission accomplished. You had your developers go out and do something new, try something different, come up with some new ideas, pick up some new skills, and bring that back to your game. And on top of that, you'd be culture shocking your audience into not being able to expect what you're going to do next, which is something that nobody can say about you right now. And as somebody that has been completely disenfranchised with Activision, it would at least show me that you are capable of change. That's something else I don't think anybody thinks of you either. Everybody knows just by changing the name on the box, you aren't changing anything at all. You're still sticking to the exact same schedule. The change that they need to make is far deeper than just the name. It's how they treat their players. It's how they treat their developers. It's how they make their games. I can't imagine how depressing it would be to have grown up on video games, had the dream of being a game developer, going through college, paying your way, graduating, and then going to work at Activision, where you effectively just become an assembly line worker that's just waiting to get replaced by automation. Let your developers prove that they're more than that. Let your developers prove that they can be better than that, because I don't really think that they're getting a chance, and it shows in the games. I'm of the mind that this is the best option for them. Newer games, different games, and more time between development. But even that doesn't really solve the problem that they have in the long run. Call of Duty is losing players and has been losing players for a while now. And that's not even just because their games have been getting weaker. It's because players have been finding games that they care about more. Different games. They've been finding new communities. And that shift that's been happening, that's permanent. And part of it even has to do with age more than anything else. And the success that Call of Duty used to enjoy isn't even realistic anymore. Not for them, and honestly, not for anybody else. Something that crossed my mind recently, and this goes back to a video that I had made on Sony's little misadventures into live service, is how these companies keep tripping over the exact same problem. Back in 2023, Sony had planned to release 12 live service games by 2026. Most of them were canceled or failed, and the only real winner was Helldivers 2. And besides that being a terrible business strategy for a platform whose fans are mainly there just to play single-player games, the bigger issue that I had pointed out, and still applies now, is that even if all 12 of those games had shipped and all 12 of them were hits, well, they would have slowly just eaten each other alive. Each success would lower the floor for the next one, not just for Sony, but for every publisher that's chasing the exact same audience. That problem only got worse when a 2024 survey had showed that 95% of studios out of more than 500 were working on live service projects. And you guys don't need a chart to be able to understand what that means. Just look at the tidal wave of live service games that we've already seen, and even a bigger wave that's still on the way. These companies have been treating live service like it's an infinite money glitch, when in reality, the competition is on track to just cannibalize itself. There simply isn't enough time, attention, or appetite to sustain this many ongoing games. The audience is not expanding, it's breaking apart. Ironically, we can see the consequences of this playing out inside one of the biggest live service titles in the industry, Call of Duty. Analysts and insiders have been pointing it out all year, saying that this game is not losing players just because it has a dip in quality. It's also because, well, the competition is finally strong enough to be able to pull players away. Eurogamer laid this out in an article titled "Fewer People Are Playing Call of Duty This Year Than Ever Before," asking why Black Ops 7 sold below expectations and whether it simply wasn't good enough. Connor McCarr interviewed industry analysts asking first Chris Dring of the games business, so why is Call of Duty Black Ops 7 seemingly sold below expectations? Dring responded, well below expectations. I don't know what they were expecting. That's the first thing that I'll say. It seems lower for us because we're used to certain numbers. Call of Duty has had a hard year. It had a spectacular launch with Black Ops 6 12 months ago and did very big numbers out the gate, did very well on Game Pass, and sold very well too. But actually, I track daily active users, and all year, Call of Duty's numbers have been quite low, lower than usual. There have been some exceptions, though. January was great coming off of Black Ops 6. There was a boost in April and May, but generally speaking, fewer people are playing Call of Duty this year than they ever have before. That's despite Black Ops 6 as the previous game being brilliant in people's eyes. In fact, in September, it was the lowest point that I've ever seen Call of Duty since the launch of Call of Duty HQ, so it's just been slightly lower. It's been a tough year for Call of Duty, but it's not the only game having a tough year. Fortnite, too, has dipped a bit. He then asked Reese Elliott of Analea Analytics the exact same question, and Elliott responded with, Call of Duty is underperforming this year due to a combination of community burnout, questionable creative and business decisions by Activision/Microsoft, and strong competition. Xbox dropped the ball on the wrong year, as this year saw some of the most exciting shooter releases in years. One reason for the decline is intense competition from rival shooters, mostly Battlefield 6 and Arc Raiders. The new Battlefield had a massive launch, securing the biggest opening in franchise history. Arc Raiders has almost sold 8 million copies so far, and the latest Simpsons crossover with Fortnite was a hit. Attention is scarce. And the further you go into the article, the pattern is pretty clear. Battlefield 6 didn't just launch well, it directly pulled Call of Duty players with it, with around a quarter of Battlefield players just having played Call of Duty the month before. Elliott then zooms out and explains that the live service space is now brutally crowded, where established games are demanding constant attention and new ones are only surviving by carving out niches. And in that contrast, Call of Duty's shrinking audience really isn't all that surprising. You have Warzone that's pulling players one way, annual releases pulling another, and then the rest of the market is splitting up what's left. We can see this issue play out with Black Ops 6 and Black Ops 7. People were really high when Black Ops 6 had launched, but once the update slowed down, issues started piling up and more live service games arrived, while its player count started to crater. Helldivers 2, Marvel Rivals, Path of Exile 2, even gacha games like Honkai Star Rail and Wuthering Waves are going to chip away at that audience. Now with Battlefield 6 and Arc Raiders in the mix, its fracturing is just accelerating. Some players are new to the space and they're finding their first home, but most people are just migrating. They're sampling, bouncing, and seeing what sticks. Some stay, some go, but each time that audience shifts, the definition of success in live service gets smaller. And this is where I think Call of Duty runs into a wall that they can't design, market, or update their way through. This franchise was built in a world where the audience was behaving more like a single ocean. Millions of players that were just moving in the same direction, invested in the same ecosystem, and that same yearly rhythm. That world is gone. Today's live service audience is a dozen of different rivers that are running in opposite directions. Once a player finds a game that respects their time or gives them an experience that they want, that loyalty sticks, and no amount of meaningful innovation or recycled map packs is going to be able to drag them back onto a treadmill that they stepped off of. This is also why Call of Duty's own structure is now working against it. Warzone is pulling attention away from the premium releases. The annual titles are cannibalizing each other the moment a new one lands. The seasonal model is demanding constant engagement at the exact same time that other live service games are doing the exact same thing. Every part of the Call of Duty ecosystem is fighting the rest of the Call of Duty ecosystem for the same player hours. And now you have external games that are doing the exact same thing. So when analysts are saying that the audience is slipping, it's not because Black Ops 7 stumbled, it's because that audience has permanently fragmented. Call of Duty used to be the center of gravity in the live service space, but now it's just another planet in a crowded solar system, and, well, the players are happily orbiting somewhere else. And this is why I think it matters so much that these studios start making different games again. Live service isn't disappearing, but the era where it made financial sense for everybody to start chasing it is coming to an end. As these audiences shrink and continue to fracture, the only sustainable move that these companies have is diversification. Single-player projects, AA experiments, odd little passion games, anything that doesn't require constant investment or attention. Ironically, live service saturation might be the thing that forces these studios back into the creative range that they used to have before they started chasing live service. And for Call of Duty and for Activision as a whole, embracing that shift might be the only way for them to make it through whatever's coming next. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about Black Ops 7 underperforming. It's about a franchise that was built in an era that just doesn't exist anymore, inside an industry that's clinging to a model that's collapsing under its own weight. If Activision wants a future where Call of Duty thrives or even just survives, they're going to have to rethink what they make, who they make it for, and what role they want to play in the industry at all. live service has essentially become a self-defeating prophecy of sorts, because you have all of these games that are looking to get all of the attention in the world. And when you start adding more and more games to that pile, you're going to reach a point where none of these games are going to get the level of attention that they need to even be able to survive. It's just not going to work out for them, because a lot of these games are pulling from the exact same pool of players. They're operating within the exact same genres. And as more games continue to come out, well, the audience is just going to get smaller and smaller as they all start taking their own piece. And new players are not replacing that pool fast enough, because the next generation of players isn't coming into the gaming audience fast enough, or at least at the speed that these games are being released. And I need to take the time to really dive into this topic in earnest and really do some extra research on it to see exactly how the numbers are lining up on this. But looking at just a couple of live service games that we've seen release over the past couple of years, most of these games haven't actually survived. Even the ones that we would classify as a success when they released are already dead now, or are dying, or whatever it might be. And I mean, even looking at the two most recent ones, looking at Battlefield 6, it's already down 80%. They've already lost 80% of their audience. Arc Raiders has already lost 50% of its audience. And that has some to do with the games, but I think it also just has to do with just the attention economy, and how there are other games that are doing the exact same thing, and more games that are on the way, other types of games that release. What happens as a result of this, and this is the reason why I say it's a self-defeating prophecy, is that as their player counts continue to fall, well, their level of investment that they're getting from players continues to fall. They're not making as much money. And if you're not making as much money, that's less money that you can put into your game. And if you're not putting more money into your game, you're not adding content into the game, which then means that players have less of a reason to play your game, and the player counts continue to crater. So it just keeps going and going, and then another live service game comes out, and the exact same thing keeps happening. And while there is a small group of players that still sticks to those games, well, that's now a small group of players that's not coming to play yours. Live service is essentially a death wish now, just because of the way that it's just because of the sheer volume of live service games that we've seen release, and the ones that we're still going to see release in the future. I think this is actually going to bring about a resurgence of single player games. I do. The irony is that when you think about it, the reason why a lot of these companies got into live service is because they were looking to get stable revenue. They were looking for predictable revenue. But now, as more games have released, it's gotten less and less predictable every single year. And the insane money that these games could have made before aren't going to be able to make anymore. And they're going to have to go back to making single player games, because at least with those games, you know what you're getting into. You know what the players are expecting. And you also know that even if that game fails, you have at least you have some knowledge on how much money you're still going to be able to make off of that game, and have different ways to be able to make off of that, or make money off of that game. Right? Because you can put that game on sale, you can flip it, you can turn it around, you can do all kinds of different stuff with it, where with these live service games, nobody wants to play a dead live service game. So there's nothing that you can do with it once you lose your players. Single player games, that's a different story. I hope that ends up being the case. I think that's going to end up being the case. Otherwise, a lot of these companies are just they're going to go out of business. Simple as that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Kick, follow me on Twitter. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe.